I'd like to call this meeting, the Clay County Commission, to order. Tonight we will begin with our invocation. Bonnie Nelson is here for that. But before we start, I would like to acknowledge the passing of Mac Porter, father of one of our previous commissioners, Craig Porter. A number of us were at his memorial service this evening, and certainly someone whose fame and his certainly influence was felt well beyond his home in Kearney. Certainly someone who had a great influence in Clay County itself, and obviously we extend condolences to his family, and most particularly our former colleague Craig Porter. So if we could stand for a moment of silence, then we will start with our invocation. We can go ahead and do our invocation now, please. And make sure the light is on and speak into the microphone, please.
Good evening. My name is Bonnie Nielsen. I'm here with, I am with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I represent the women's group in all of the Northland. I'm grateful to be here tonight. And we welcome friends to go join us at church anytime. Our Father in heaven, this evening we would like to express our gratitude to Thee for the many blessings we enjoy, and thankful for the love that we feel from Thee each day. We're grateful for the opportunity that we have to live in this beautiful community and be surrounded by the good people who live and work in this town and in the communities that surround us. We're grateful to live in this land of freedom and for the opportunities that we have as citizens of the United States of America. We're grateful for the men and women who serve in government positions in our nation and here in our community, and we ask Thee to bless them with wisdom and righteous desires as they perform their responsibilities. We ask Thee also to watch over the men and women in the armed services, and we pray that Thou will bless and comfort the Porter family in their time of mourning. We pray for all who are here in attendance this night, that there will be a spirit of cooperation and understanding as issues are discussed. Please bless those who make decisions with ideas that will be helpful and beneficial to our community. And we pray that Thou will help us to remember to reach out to one another in charity and love and follow the example of our Savior, Jesus Christ. We express our love and gratitude and pray for Thy Spirit to be here in abundance this night. And this we ask in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Nolte?
Here.
Commissioner Withington?
Here.
Commissioner Lawson?
Here.
Commissioner Wagner?
Here.
Commissioner Johnson?
Here.
Commissioner Thompson?
Here.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Here.
That brings us to the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion related to the approval of this evening's agenda? Commissioner Johnson.
Move to approve tonight's agenda as written.
Motion has been made for the approval of the agenda as written. Are there any comments or changes? Seeing none, you are recognized to close.
I close.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Johnson? Yes. Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Withington?
Yes.
Commissioner Lawson?
Yes.
Commissioner Wagner?
Aye.
Motion.
Thank you. That brings us to public comments. Are there any members of the public who would care to come forward and comment on any issues not on this evening's agenda? Seeing none. That brings us to our consent agenda. Administrator?
The consent agenda allows the Commission to act upon items considered to be routine and approved in one motion. These may include items that have been reviewed by the Commission in a prior session. There will be no separate discussion unless a commissioner requests that an item be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. There are four items on the consent agenda this evening. Approval of the commission meeting minutes from January 18th and January 25th, along with Resolution 2024-37, is approving an interagency cooperative agreement between the Clay County Sheriff's Office and Ray County Sheriff's Office for the transfer of a trailer. Resolution 2024-39 is approving a revocable event license with Dynamic Disc KCMO for their 4th annual disc golf tournament at Smithville Lake. And Resolution 2020-40, approving the donation from the Friends of the James Farm permanent loan of a commemorative Winchester Model 941 gun at the Jesse James Birthplace and Museum.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions? If not, is there a motion related to our consent agenda this evening? Commissioner Johnson.
Move to approve tonight's consent agenda.
Motion is made for the approval of this evening's consent agenda. Is there any discussion? I just want to acknowledge an official from Ray County here. We're certainly welcome to be here, sir, and to observe our meeting. Thank you very much for that. If there are no further comments, you're recognized to close.
I close.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Johnson? Yes. Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Withington?
Yes.
Commissioner Lawson?
Yes.
Commissioner Wagner?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
Next on the agenda is our regular agenda, and the first item under that heading is 2024-38. Administrator.
Resolution 2024-38 is approving a 2023 Equitable Sharing Agreement and Annual Certification Report from the Sheriff's Office. Captain Agdarian is here to provide information to the Commission.
Good evening, Commissioners. Captain Amy Agdarian, Clay County Sheriff's Office. Before you tonight is the annual request for the certification and agreement with the Federal Equitable Sharing Account. This is a program that the county has been involved in for more years than I can even remember, where we work on task force with other agencies, and we are able to bring a portion of goods, monies seized in the course of these duties back to the county. So we work with other federal organizations, some state organizations, and that is the purpose of this agreement. So even though we don't have currently anyone assigned to these task forces, and we don't know that that's going to happen in the future, there is still some money left in this account. And so for as long as we have funds, we are going to be required to enter into this agreement and certify how those monies have been spent in the prior year.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments of the captain? Seeing none, is there a motion related to 2024-41? Commissioner Johnson.
Move to approve 2024-38.
I'm sorry, 38. I skipped ahead. Thank you for the correction. Motion, that's part of the job, you know, to keep me in line. Motion's been made on 2024-38. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Withington?
Yes.
Commissioner Lawson?
Yes.
Commissioner Wagner?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
Next on our agenda is 2024-41.
Resolution 2024-41 is approval of the proposal and capital project encumbrance request for an ARPA stormwater infrastructure project to replace the box culvert 49B-C4 on Northeast 172nd Street to award the contract to Decker Construction Services. And Highway Administrator Griffin is here to provide information to the Commission about the project.
Please proceed.
Good evening, Terry Griffin, Highway Administrator. This is a project on Northeast 172nd Street, west of Ragsdale Road, and you can see that on the map there. This is just a little ways east of Kearney. The existing box there does not manage stormwater efficiently, and it shows significant deterioration. While the road does not actually narrow at this point, You can see the deterioration there shown in the right side of the photo where the road is coming closer, or the side of the erosion is causing the coming closer and closer to the edge of the road, because the box there is only about 30 feet wide, which is barely wider than what the road is there. Because of this, we'll put in a wider box, a 60-foot wide box, which will move which will keep erosion from hitting the edges of the road, and we add additional stormwater controls as well. The photos here show the existing box. It's rather a unique design, if you will. It was apparently built in stages. You can see that the walls of the structure look different at each end. One is more stacked stone, one is looks like more like concrete. So we assume that it was built in two separate stages over several years period of time. The midway through the box, there is a 4-foot drop because the inlet and the outlet for the box are at very differing levels, and so it has just a flat 4-foot drop in the middle of the box to accommodate that. So the new box that we'll put in will be about 6 feet tall by 6 feet wide and 60 feet long, and it will have a 4-foot drop before the water gets to the inlet side of the thing, or into the box, and that 4-foot drop will have a concrete enclosure which will act as a stilling basin, which will also help to further reduce erosion around the box. So the construction contract will include removing the existing box, adding additional erosion controls, and restoring the roadway. The construction will be done by Decker Construction and will cost about $218,420. Construction is expected to take 7 to 8 weeks, weather permitting, and construction is expected to start sometime in the summer of 2024. If you have any questions, I would be glad to answer them.
Commissioner Withington.
Do you anticipate any road closures during this?
Yes, the road will be closed throughout the entire construction period.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Further questions or comments? Seeing none, is there a motion on 2024-41? Commissioner Johnson.
Move to approve 2024-41.
Motion's been made for the approval of 2024-41. Further discussion? Seeing none, you are recognized to close.
I close.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Withington?
Yes.
Commissioner Lawson?
Yes.
Commissioner Wagner?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. That brings us to the final issue on our regular agenda, 2024-42. Administrator?
Resolution 2024-42 is approval of the proposal and a capital project encumbrance request for an ARPA stormwater infrastructure project to replace box culvert 166-C1 on Mount Olivet Road. This is with, again, Decker Construction Services, and Highway Administrator Griffin will provide information about the project.
Terry Griffin, Highway Administrator. This is a project, as was said, on Mount Olivet Road, just south of 132nd Street. The existing box at this location is a concrete box, but it is only 2 feet tall and 3 feet wide, so it's extremely small. But it is also only 31 feet wide, which again is too narrow for this roadway. The box itself is partially collapsed, and stormwater has undermined the entire structure, threatening eventual street collapse. The photos here show deterioration on the walls and floor of the box culvert that's there. You can see supporting rebar that's exposed in the left picture, holes in the floor of the box itself in the center picture. And then on the photo on the right is the inlet, where you can see that that stormwater has undermined the entrance to the culvert and further threatens collapse of the structure. The new box will be rather than replacing it with a box, we're going to replace it with a concrete pipe that is 42 inches in diameter. It will be reinforced concrete, and it will be 64 feet long. The longer length will allow better erosion control, and it will allow us to direct stormwater away from the road, where it will keep the road safer for a while. Even this existing small box, which is 2 by 3, allows a 6-foot square opening. The new 42-inch concrete pipe will have 9.6 square feet of opening, which is a 60% increase in size, which should allow much better stormwater drainage in that area. The construction will be completed by Decker Construction. Construction is expected to be completed in 7 working days, weather permitting, and the cost of the replacement will be $64,422. It includes the removal of all the existing structure, restoring the roadway, and adding erosion controls. The project will probably take place in April of 2024, based on how weather cooperates with us. If you have any questions, I would be glad to answer them.
Commissioner Withington, you're recognized.
Quick question. It seems like Decker Construction gets a lot of these contracts. They're our on-call vendor, right?
That's correct. They're an on-call vendor.
So do they give us are we sure these are the lowest prices if they're not going out for bid or anything?
We are confident of the prices, not on these projects, but on many of the projects that Decker does. We have engineering estimates prior to the time that we get the estimate from Decker. They don't see those estimates prior, and consistently Decker is below what the engineers' estimates are for what they would expect the project to take.
All right, thank you.
By the way, I was having a discussion with somebody, it was a different subject, but it was about this, it was on the subject of governmental procurement. And something that I think we should always be mindful of is it's not just lowest bid, but lowest and best bid, most responsive. So I don't know exactly what that adds to the conversation. It does add something, obviously, but I think it's something to keep in mind that sometimes the lowest bid is not the cheapest bid in the long run. So I wanted to make mention of that.
That's true. Decker has an outstanding reputation, and to date, we have never had any problems with the construction that Decker has done. But I do understand lowest and best.
Oh, Commissioner, hold on. Let me get your microphone on.
Yeah,
There you
no,
go.
I wasn't questioning. For the people at home, we
Sure.
always hear Decker Construction,
understand
so I just wanted them to know. And I wasn't, saying we have to go with the lowest. I'd rather go with, even if it was more expensive, but they were more qualified, I would rather go with the more qualified company. But I know people are probably hearing us every week talk
Yes.
about Decker, so it was more for explanation for them, so.
I understand.
Commissioner Wagner.
Thank you, and this is kind of following in line with, for those at home. Terry, can you just mention what would be a threshold by which we would say, well, at this point, we don't do on-call, we would actually put it out to a more general bid?
I don't think we have an actual threshold on that. In some cases, it would make a difference how the project is funded. We may be required by the rules of the funding to go out to bid, and so in some cases, we will go out to bid.
Right.
We do, on a regular basis, renew and ask for new information from Decker Construction on an annual basis about their on-call contract. And then from time to time, we will rebid completely and open that up for additional firms to participate.
Well, and I note that, many of our projects, although they are big to us and they are important to our taxpayers, 64,000 here, a couple $100,000 there. Generally, that you would consider those, in my book anyway, on call. It's just when you get to multi-million-dollar projects, at that point you may say, well, maybe lowest isn't necessarily best. Maybe I've got to put it out there to bid. But anyway, just wanted to go down that road just for a second, literally. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I also want to mention something here, and that is when commissioners ask questions, I think many times when questions are asked, they are questions that we generally will know the answer to, but it is a way to bring out, because we hear it all the time, and it's a way to bring more illumination to our constituents. So sometimes when questions are asked, the purpose behind that is to inform the public, and I think that's worth noting, because I think that's a good thing for commissioners to be doing.
And
so
we're
I
happy to answer
appreciate
those
that.
questions.
Commissioner Lawson.
Yeah, the only thing I would say about that, because I just made reference to that with Commissioner Withington, that, why wouldn't we go out to bid? My fear would be that Decker's done a great job. They have a great reputation, I know that. But I think that, maybe at the beginning of the year, we do some projects, we put that out as a bid. This is a suggestion. We put that out to bid and see where those bids fall, as far as other companies as well as Decker. And that way, it kind of does two things. It gives us the opportunity to see what else is out there and what we might encounter cost-wise, but it also keeps a company that we use over and over and over again on their toes, and they make sure that they give us the best price. So I just think we usually let bids out for things, you know, like the 200 and some thousand. I think that should become kind of a standard, that we let those larger bids out and as a bidding process, not just to award them to somebody because they consistently, you know, they've done a good job, but it's in fairness to other companies in the county. I think it'd be nice if we could bid these out.
And if I could clarify for those listening also, I do want to clarify for our residents, we do bid out for our on-call engineer services. So there is a process, but specific for project, you're correct that didn't. And sometimes what drives that is the type of the project, right? When we're doing bridges or a substantial project, then it's bid. But I wanted to make sure that our residents understand Decker did go through a bidding process and was selected as one of our on-call.
Commissioner Johnson.
Actually, before I make the motion, I have a question for our administrator. Is there any ARPA requirements that require us to go out to bid?
No, as long as we follow our standard purchasing policies, and this does.
Okay, thank you. With that, I'd like to move to approve 2024-42.
Motion's been made for the approval of 2024-42. Any further discussion? Seeing none, you are recognized to close.
Close.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Withington?
Yes.
Commissioner Lawson?
Yes.
Commissioner Wagner?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. That brings us to the conclusion of our regular agenda. Next our discussion items. We have two items under discussion. The first being synergy presentation, and that was requested by Commissioner Lawson. There you go.
Okay. Before they start, this is such a worthwhile project, and I think we forget some of the services that are out there from the people out in the county. When I had a conversation with one of their staff, and they kind of filled me in on what this was doing, it was surprising to me because I really didn't even know the project was out there. That doesn't mean I have my finger on the pulse of everything, but I was impressed, highly impressed. And I told them, I said, I think it'd be a great idea if you'd come and make a presentation, in fact, because maybe other commissioners aren't aware of your services that are offered. So with that, I'll let them proceed.
If you'd like to proceed? Make sure your microphone, and I'll say this for the benefit of anyone coming up to speak, please make sure the microphone is on. You'll see the little green ring around the microphone that will illuminate that when the microphone is on. State your name and then and make your statement. So with that, please proceed.
Thank you. My name is Dennis Meyer. I'm the co-executive director for Synergy Services. Robin Winter, that most of you know, is the other co-executive director and would have loved to have been here tonight, but she's visiting her family in New York. You have in front of you the packet and the one-page kind of overview, and so I don't want to necessarily duplicate what you can read. But to summarize, we've purchased a piece of property on Prather Road, 12.5 acres at 3500 Prather, and we have looked for a number of years for a location to try to address the housing crisis that many programs, many communities across the country face, but Synergies is particularly unique in that we provide emergency shelter for women and children primarily who are impacted by domestic violence. And when they come to our shelter, while it's a great place, it's a 35-bed facility, and the number of beds really haven't changed since Clay County has doubled in size, probably. So we turn away roughly 1,500 calls each year requesting housing, emergency shelter, and we try our hardest to to navigate and to work with other shelters around the city. But in the Northland, we simply needed more space. Access to affordable and safe housing is an issue that goes beyond just our population, but certainly the clients that we serve are some of the most vulnerable in our community. So we purchased this property. It has a school on it, and the school is roughly 20,000 square feet, and there's another modular building, 5,000 square foot building behind it. The modular building was in pretty good shape. We simply updated it, and our staff are currently in it already. The school was in need of major renovation. However, structurally, it'd be a shame to put really good solid concrete into a landfill. So we've worked with Draw Architecture firm downtown for over a year to look at all the possibilities to utilize the space, to renovate it, and to preserve the structure that's there without just tearing it all down and starting over. So you'll see in the plans that we are planning to build an 18-unit complex, and we have a number of two-bedroom units, like 7 two-bedroom units, 5 three-bedroom units, and then 6 four-bedroom units. And we often run into that challenge of needing at least 4 bedrooms for larger families who are coming to our shelter or have 4 or 5 kids sometimes. The success rate, we have a housing program that's been in existence now for a couple of years, and the average stay is around 18 months, and the amazing outcome is that roughly 87% of the clients who participate in that program, once they leave the program, are self-sufficient, have a job, their kids are back in school, and the risk of homelessness is almost none. And so there are some national statistics, but the latest is that it costs roughly $35,000 a year to cover the cost of someone who is truly homeless and living on the street when you consider medical costs and educational costs and so forth. So it not only makes good economic sense, it's a very important project for this community. We have been, of course, raising money for this project, and overall it's a $15 million project, and we're about $4 million from our target. We are requesting $2 million, which would cover what we have left to cover the construction part of the project. And we've had a lot of success. In raising money, we have the support of a number of foundations, a number of donors in the community. A lot of folks have really stepped up and understood the seriousness of this issue and the importance of this project. So we provided these packets for you this evening. If you have questions about the construction or the property or what we're going to do on this site, we have one of the architects or the lead architect for Draw who can answer detailed questions about the structure. More general questions I'm glad to answer, and if you have other questions just about anything from budget and so forth, I'm glad to, or questions about Synergy if you're not familiar with what Synergy does and our presence in Clay County. So open it for questions, and then I'll introduce some of the staff that will do some presentation about the program.
Thank you for visiting with us tonight. I've been to your facility and it was very, very impressive. With that, Commissioner Lawson, this is your subject, so I think you should lead our conversation. Please proceed.
Yeah, one of the things I wondered, you were talking about how they become self-sufficient and don't return to that bad situation. Do you give them some kind of training, job training?
Part of Synergy's approach to all of this is a wraparound approach, and so from from day one when they come to Synergy, we provide them not only with the emergency services of food and clothing and so forth, but as they become more stable and healthier, quite frankly, job training, educational support, childcare support, sometimes transportation, all those primary skill sets that you would use or need to be self-sufficient and more resilient. Sometimes finding resources and knowing how to access resources are key to the, to becoming self-sustaining or more resilient. And so our program staff work 24/7 to provide the case management, the therapy, and then the advocacy support to do that.
Then your staff that you have on there that are helping along with all these many projects, are they a salaried staff, and do you have some volunteers? How does that work?
Sure. So Synergy has roughly 180 full-time employees and then roughly 20 or 30 backup staff. Most of the frontline staff are salaried, and then, the funds that we receive, of course, some of them pay for the service, some of them pay for the staff, some of them pay for the material or the goods that you would need. So it really is a combination budget of about 80% of our cost for the program is staffing. And fortunately, we have enough funding to cover those other costs rather easily. And the long-term plan actually for this project is to utilize the project voucher funding that HUD has. The nice part about that is that a tenant, once they leave or if they leave and need further HUD support, that voucher they can use that voucher. It follows them to the next housing opportunity. And HUD, that project voucher payment has to match the market value. And so we believe that once we have it built, the program funds will be from HUD, will sustain it long term.
Oh, great. Great, that's fantastic. Very good.
Thank you. Yeah.
Commissioner Wagner.
Thank you. Well, Dennis, I've known you long enough where I think I know what you do. So I want to ask you that, but I will just make a couple quick comments. One is to point out, as you have with this sheet, that there are families that have 7 children. That, it's not just the old farm families of yesteryear, of which my dad was one of 8, I might add, but there are families who have that number of children, and they are challenged to find a place that can hold them. To have an ability to have, 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom or more is you just don't find that much. And so to be able to have that offered is crucially important. And I just want to recognize that that is a real thing. and to also recognize that we sometimes forget that with our growth here in Clay County, what also comes with it is the fact that some have challenges and they require assistance, and that is obviously where you step in. I also have to note, because I think this was the experience. In my last elected position, you were building the facility on the old judge's property along Antioch Road. And I remember at that time some folks who I'll just term it, thought there goes the neighborhood because Synergy is building this facility. And if I understand correctly, there were some who had a similar reaction when this facility was being brought up. And it's natural and it happens and that sort of thing. But I just want to say that, yes, there goes the neighborhood in a positive direction. Because I think in every instance, whether it's this facility, the one on Antioch, and the one that preceded my former elected service with what was built on Parvin Road, each and every time when Synergy has come in, Synergy has created an opportunity for families and kids, and it has been a positive for the neighborhoods in which you have come in. And I want to recognize that too. And I'll just close by saying, you know, the list of things that this organization does and its achievements and what it has done for families, well, we could be here all night with that list. But I just want to say, just to my colleagues and to staff, you know, to the extent that there is something that we can do to be involved, I think that is worth it. I will also go on by saying that the pockets of this county are not as deep as in other places. So I may have to look at some sofas, but and what's in them. But I do think that what you do for Clay County is important, and it continues to be. And whatever role we can play, whatever that may be, I think it is to our advantage to have that role, whatever it is. But Dennis, to you and your staff, thank you for what you do. You do good work. You do the Lord's work as far as I'm concerned. And look forward to whenever you do the next Kindest Kansas City event, and because that is another great thing that you all do. And if folks here have not been to that, you should. You're going to come out feeling a whole lot better than when you went in. So thank you very much, Dennis. Thank you.
Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Just a quick question about your staffing. I think you said you had 108 full-time staff members?
180.
180?
Yeah, we have, besides the housing program, we have a school-based program that provides services to children in every school district in Clay County. We have an emergency shelter for youth, 12 to 17, and transitional housing for kids who come out of that emergency shelter. We have a domestic violence shelter and a children's center, which provides emergency care for the families and children, you know, impacted by domestic violence or family violence. We have one of the 16 children's advocacy centers in the state of Missouri. Synergy has one of them and serves Clay, Platte, and Ray County and provides forensic interviewing for children who report abuse or severe neglect. We work with law enforcement and Children's Division to make sure that those cases can be properly investigated, prosecuted, and that the clinical service that need to follow. And then we have a campus in Parkville, our oldest site, and that's where the agency started. We've been around about 55 years. We started with a 12-bed facility on Park College University, or Park College. It is now Park University, and we have a counseling center there that provides clinical services throughout the Northland. We have an office in Richmond and so forth. One of our flagship programs is our treatment program for batterers. We have a state-recognized program that we now have a domestic violence court, in fact, a separate court that Judge O'Hare has started. And that's really, you know, a nod to Synergy's expertise and, quite frankly, Sarah Bramer's expertise. She's here tonight, and I'd love to recognize her and the staff. But that work is groundbreaking work. To have a treatment program for batterers is very difficult work, and to perfect it is nearly impossible in many communities, and I feel like she and her staff pulled that off. So that's why we have 180 staff. It's a broad umbrella of an agency.
So I was trying to figure out your number of the ratio from staff to clients. You have any idea what that is? Because obviously I was looking at the numbers here, 18 adults and 50 to 75 children.
Yeah.
It must be more than that.
Yeah. We have, I think last year we had 40,000 bed nights. That means that in all of our shelters, if you count a bed night for each time we have a person in the bed, they are over 40,000. So we're providing meals, transportation, clothing, all the things that go along with emergency services for roughly 70 emergency beds, and then another probably 50 or 60 transitional housing beds. Additionally, we usually have probably 20 to 25,000 counseling hours of care, just to provide clinical services for outpatient and our residential clients. So the numbers, the statistics, I don't know that I have them.
What's the staffing level, do you know, for just the Forest Hill Village?
They'll have 7 staff there. Yeah, let me
You got some
introduce
backup
Sarah,
coming up
and
here.
she can talk about the program. Thanks.
Okay.
So, sorry, my name is Sarah Brammer. I am the Vice President of Domestic Violence Services at Synergy, and I am responsible for this program and others like the Batters Intervention Program that Dennis talked a little bit about. But with this program, we have 10 staff currently, and those staff meet with clients in a variety of formats. But we also have some therapists that specifically see children, some case managers. There's not a lot of staff with this program. Some of our programs at Synergy do require a ratio. Those are youth-based programs that are licensed by the state, and those ratios range from 1 to 4. That's not this program. The intention of this program, if I can talk just a little bit about that, is to give moms or dads who are abused a new start. It's not to take the ownership of their children or take custody of them, or it's to help them get started again. And I want to go back to those numbers that Dennis talked just a little bit about. So we get 2,800 roughly calls every year. I had 316 women in shelter last year. That's the 2003 numbers. I'm finishing up our annual report. If you think about that math, so 2,800 call every year and ask for help, and I can house 300. Of those 300, of all those 2,800, all of them are looking for safe housing, every single one of them. So then when they're done with our 4-month stay, where would they go? The 318 roughly that we had in shelter. Where would you go if you left everything you owned and left an abusive partner, may have a really spotty work history, may have trauma? Where would you go? Would you be all better and be able to rent your own house and have a full-time job and watch your kid? That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to give them an ability to start again. And so we have 10 staff that teach them all kinds of things and really want to work with them to be better parents. That's our goal, and to resolve the trauma and get moving. But I just tell part of the story. We have a survivor with us today who's part of our program, and I think will be a great person to add, but I also have the program manager here. So I want to talk a little bit about it, tell you a little bit about the numbers, but also let them have a point to talk. I'm going to pass it to them. Christina, you guys have questions?
Did you, by the way, before we do that, did you have any, Commissioner Johnson, did you have any questions? Okay, I just want to make, before we change subject, you had gotten your own questions in. Thank you. And I would ask the ladies there who are, if you're coming up to speak, be sure and mention your name for our audio recordings so that we have that on the record. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Christina Cherry. I am the program manager of the current housing program, and I will be the program manager of the Forest Hill Project. I began my career at Synergy as an advocate at the emergency domestic violence shelter, and then from there became a case manager. And during that time is when I really started to see that housing crisis. My job as the case manager was to help the families who came in identify where they were going to go next. And I can't tell you how many times I had to send a family back out because they ended the program, but they had nowhere else to go except for either another shelter or to the street. So it is my pleasure to work with this housing program now, where we can serve families instead of sending them back out into pretty much nothing. So this past year, we had 136 clients with a roof over their head. 103 of those clients were children. We run 30 units currently, and with the Forest Hill Project, we'll have the 18 units there, but we'll also continue scattered site units to make sure that we're still making up those 30 units. And so that gives us the ability to have more flexibility too. So families who need a little more structure, a little more staff support can come stay at that 18-unit facility where we're there 24/7. And those who are a little more independent, who don't need quite as much staff support, but who still need that leg up, can go into one of those scattered site units. I do want to take the opportunity to let one of my previous clients speak. She just recently graduated from the program. I'm very proud to be able to introduce her because she worked her rear end off to get to where she is today. So I'm going to introduce Jerica to you guys.
Hello. I was in a bad situation, married for 15 years in a really bad relationship. I have 3 kids with him, and I called Synergy, thought I had no way out, and they helped me. I got my high set, I got a job, I've got my own place. I had almost $10,000 when I graduated the program that they helped me save back. They pushed me to get my high set, but I mean, so I've accomplished a lot. They gave me counseling, help with the kids, help with anything I needed, support, stability, and it helped a lot. So without them, I don't think I'd be here today, so.
Are there any questions of the 2 ladies that just came up?
Ross.
Thank you. They're awesome.
Well, they know that.
She's
I want
awesome.
you to know.
She's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming forward. I don't see any other questions on my board at the moment. When you guys were kind enough to have me over during Christmas time, I'd understood that there was some kind of an arrangement you had with the sheriff to provide funding, and I wanted to, my understanding was those were funds that were maybe not specific in their amounts as far as their identification goes. So I guess what I'm wondering is, can you tell us a little bit more about that? And is this a separate ask from what the sheriff was providing? And by the way, just for the record, I did follow up with the sheriff on that. And just so there's no doubt, the sheriff acknowledged that we, as a commission, are the entity who would be able to release funding. He had no. I don't want anybody to think that he was somehow going off the reservation. He was not. He acknowledges the role of the commission and his role, so this would be a recommendation on his part. So that being said, can you speak to that?
My understanding is that that there were some funds that were earmarked for his, or the use of, his department. And in talking about this project and Synergy's need, he indicated that this might be an opportunity to redirect the funds that he wouldn't be using if it were possible. And of course, it's your all's discretion. I don't know how much of those funds, and you would be obviously privy to that. In our mind, I think we had heard roughly $2 million, but again, that's not really our business to dig into what he did or didn't use, or what you may decide of that. It's just a really general understanding of, and some general conversation. And the request, of course, is that if we could use those funds, we believe they would be put to very, very good use, and in fact, would kind of align with his original intent, which would be to add to the safety of the community. And I think in that vein, there's some logic to how those funds might be used in a way that would still line up with his original request or intent.
Well, and my understanding was that, I'm trying to think of the best way to put this, that those amounts were not, it was not a specific amount, but it was just there would be, in his estimation, there would be money available.
That's right.
An amount to be determined depending on how other costs shook out in other areas. And so I just wanted to make sure that we were not thinking in terms of 2 separate asks that you were making, but this presentation, this request you're making is attached specifically to those funds of not specifically known amounts.
Yeah, correct. Yeah,
and I don't know when we will have those numbers from the sheriff, because he's going through his processes as he absolutely should. He is doing his due diligence, and so that process just takes time before he could generate that kind of number and then come before us and make his case related to those funds.
Yeah, we don't intend on coming back for another request. This is all connected to that particular conversation that you've referenced.
And like I said, I don't know the sheriff's timeline, and quite honestly, I have no interest in making his timeline any more strict than it already is. So certainly, as the sheriff is able to, as the situation ripens and he is able to provide us this information, I have every confidence that he will provide us with the information that he has available, and then we can discuss and make some decision related to that with that amount of money in mind.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you.
Commissioner Carpenter.
Thanks. I just wanted to thank you and all of you for all the good work that you've done over the many years, helped thousands of women and kiddos. As the numbers suggest, clearly there's more demand than there is ability to provide. And so steps that are taken to increase our ability to help folks out, I think, are, as Commissioner Wagner said, the Lord's work, and I'm just very grateful to you all and to Jerica and all the folks you've helped. I'm just very grateful that people put in the time and work to do this. My father-in-law has worked for Kansas City Rescue Mission, now Shelter KC, for decades, so I've gotten some experience, talking with him and seeing the work they do. To see, the market demands that have taken place in recent years with housing costs. Obviously, that's a multi-pronged issue, but service providers like Synergy have a big role to play in addressing it, and just very grateful for that as well. And as to the $15 million capital campaign, I know there's a lot of work, glad to hear you guys, you say you're about 11 the way there. That's quite an accomplishment, and congratulate you on that.
Thank you.
Hope the commission can see what we can do to help. Thanks.
Thank you.
Commissioner Withington.
I think this is a great project. When Will called me in October asking if he could give you guys my phone number, the lady called me the very next day to talk to me about this project, and I'm 100% supportive of using the leftover money from the sheriffs to help this. I think it's going to be a great project for the Western District, but also all of Clay County. So I'm all for it. So
thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Wagner.
No, thank you. I should have asked this earlier, Dennis, so I apologize. With what you have right now, that 11, does that allow you to essentially do the envelope of the building, and so the dollars that you're seeking to fill your gaps then allows you to do the interiors? Because I noticed that you're breaking ground this month, so that seems to suggest a pathway, and I just want to make sure I understand that pathway. Thank you.
Yeah. So we are probably a week or two from finalizing the budget. All the bids are coming in, and we have a budget, and we're working to make sure that we hit that budget. Our belief, of course, is that we wouldn't go forward unless we had either sufficient money raised and or had the ability to borrow if we need it. And our preference, of course, is not to have any debt load if we can avoid it, and so we wouldn't stop. And plus, we would continue to raise while we're building. If we break ground in February, at latest March, our plan right now is to have a groundbreaking ceremony in the middle of March, but it's somewhat of a secure location, so it's not going to be real public. We're not going to be real splashy about it, but for the people, the donors and foundations that need to be there and be recognized, we'll have that. And you'd be certainly welcome to attend if you want it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
One last comment on the money that we were just discussing. Was my understanding this is ARPA money that we would be talking about. It might not be a bad idea, as we are waiting for the numbers to solidify that we're talking about, to get with staff and make sure, and you may have already done so, to make sure that this would be a qualified expense under the ARPA regulations. I would think it would be, but we're talking about, the federal government, so it's as well to be very, very sure if we can possibly do that. So if you have not discussed that particular aspect of it, it might be good to have that sorted out prior to when we would come up with some specific numbers.
Okay.
Commissioner Lawson?
Well, I just wanted to say God bless you for what you do. And it was great to hear from somebody who you impacted and gave them a new life and new hope for the future. And that's what I see this being all about, is the product that you put out there, if you will, when it's all said and done. I've seen this at work at a project south of the river I was acquainted with some years back, and how those women went out and they did great things. The kids had a good life, a good future, you know, that they would have never had in the situations they lived in before. And so I want to thank you very much for coming and for your staff, wonderful staff, and all that they do. It's a needed thing, and thank God somebody's doing it. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, we feel very lucky that we're in a community that puts its arms around Synergy and takes ownership of the mission like maybe many other communities do, but I'm not aware of one, so we're always very appreciative. Thank you for your time tonight.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yeah, I just too wanted to echo some of the sentiments of my colleagues here and just say thank you for the work that you guys do. I'm not as familiar with Synergy as I am with a lot of the same types of programs. I was in law enforcement in LA County for 30 years, so utilized similar programs hundreds of times, and I've seen the success, and it's tremendous. Mike was mentioned, it's the Lord's work you guys are doing, and I really appreciate it. I will say, when I got the phone call as well about trying to seek some financial support for this, I gave her a little bit of caution that, hey, I'm not so sure just because not all the money is spent, but that means we have extra money, if that makes sense. As a matter of fact, first of all, I had concerns whether or not it would even fall under the ARPA guidelines that we have. Because there's certain categories you have to fit in, and it's kind of complicated. I don't know if the county administrator wants to chime in on that. But also, there's a list of things that the county wants to accomplish as well. And what I don't know is how the commission is going to prioritize all those things. So I send out kind of a word of caution. Hey, we don't have an extra couple million just sitting around with nothing to do with it. And I don't even know if we did have, if it would fit into that category. So I throw that out as a word of caution. Okay. And I say that not because I don't like what you guys do. I love what you guys do. And I think it's great. But again, I don't know if you had any thoughts on that, if you just wanted to wait. I don't want to put you on the spot. But.
No, I'm happy. And I've had conversations with representatives from Synergy about financing what's been discussed this evening. So there's just a couple of things for the commission to remember is that if we're talking about the funding that is set aside for the resource center for the sheriff's department, that is lost revenue. So that is one of the most flexible categories that the county has under ARPA funding, as opposed to fitting in the other categories like COVID response or infrastructure. So there is some flexibility there. We are working on updating where we are with all our ARPA projects, not only county projects, but all the outside agencies. And I remind the commission, 38% of the ARPA money that the county's received has gone to outside agencies. So we're touching base with all the cities and all the other agencies to see where are they with their projects, are they moving along, are they actually going to get them obligated by the end of the year, which is a requirement. So we hope to be coming to the commission, hopefully in the near future, to give you all an update on where all the projects are. I've had conversations with the sheriff about what does he think his timetable is to come to the commission and talk about his project. And so we're working through when we think that timetable may happen.
I'd like to just also say how much we appreciate the work you do. I belong to a number of clubs, and those that I belong to that do charitable donations, the Rotary Club, the Breakfast Club, all, I believe you're on their list on almost every occasion. So I think that demonstrates the widespread acknowledgement of the value of what you do. And I would be reticent if I didn't mention, and plus, I could use the brownie points at home to say how much my wife, who makes stockings for your guests every Christmas, she really enjoys doing that, and certainly she deserves your appreciation, and she certainly does get it. But like I say, if she's watching, do I get an extra cookie tonight? But thank you so much for what you do. And also thank you so much for reaching out to us, because it's important that we as a commission understand what your mission is and how you accomplish it and how you go about it. Because Obviously, a lot of things go by our desk, and sometimes it's easy to kind of get them all blurred together, and you folks really do stand out, and I certainly appreciate what it is you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Is there any?
And thank your wife. Appreciate that.
I will do that, and I will be the recipient of her gratitude. Sorry about that, but happy wife, happy life.
There you go.
Thank you very much. Unless there's any, would you like any closing comments, Commissioner Lawson? Okay. With that, that will conclude discussion item number 1, Synergy presentation. That will bring us to Highway 92 corridor study as our next discussion item. That one's mine, so I'm just going to give a quick outline of what I'm wanting to discuss, and then open it up. One of our main legislative priorities this year has been a study for 92 Highway, and those and improvements that we would be able to make. The study has a lot of things that has a couple of attributes that would, I think, be beneficial to the county. One being, it would allow us to be able to obtain funding more easily from the federal government, from MoDOT, from MARC, different sources. So that study would enable us to more easily qualify for funds to start making improvements and to work on that particular stretch of road. It would also, I believe, be assistance to our staff and others as we are planning to go along and what we want to do as a county and how we want to develop our infrastructure. We've been talking about it for a long time. It's come and it's gone, but I think we have an opportunity now to do that. What I would be recommending is that this would be a study that would be 92 Highway, but it would only be the segment within Clay County boundaries. So it would roughly be Smithville to Excelsior, would not include any other counties. Originally, the thought was to also include parts of Platte County, but we are, I think what we're talking about right now is just for Clay County. Some of the things that we would want to get from a study of this sort would be to identify areas where traffic flow and safety are an issue. We need to have some suggestions on what some alternatives might be, how we might be able to handle those, and some idea of what the costs would be on that. We also are going to need help in establishing the correct qualifications that we have, or classifications, under the National Environment Policy Act that is used by the Federal Highway Administration. So if we're going to get funding, we're going to need to be able to have that kind of information. And also, they would be able to help us shepherd this through some of the agencies we would be soliciting for funds, specifically MARC and MoDOT. As we go through this process, I think we should be reaching out to different organizations. MARC, the cities of Smithville, Kearney, and Excelsior. I think this study could be used by those entities to forward their own development plans, and they could use the traffic flow and other such information. MoDOT would be another area we would want to reach out to. Our legislative delegation obviously is going to be important. And we also, I think, would do well to coordinate with the Northland Transportation Committee. That is an organization that basically are people in both Clay and Platte counties, and they would be helping us to get some of these requests through as a broader request for funding and that sort of a thing. The cost of this study, from what I can tell, would be roughly $500,000. What I would like us to do, because it's always easier when you've got matching funds. If you go to any governmental entity or anyone else and you say, we'd like some money, one of the questions that comes up is, so what are you willing to do? Are you putting money in there? So what I would like to be recommending is that I believe we have something on the order of $70,000 left in the funds that we had set aside for the election, which does not look as though it's going to happen because we're past the deadline. I think that would allow us an easier issue to bring that funding to the table and to get this study done. And if it didn't go through, obviously that $70,000 could be released for other uses later on in the year. So that's the kind of a very broad-brushed way that to tell you kind of what I was wanting to present to the commission for discussion. And with that, Commissioner Lawson, I believe you were seeking recognition.
Yeah. When did we do the last study? Approximately, doesn't have to be.
Go ahead, you seem to, do you have a number?
I believe the study was done in 2002.
2002.
So it's about 22 years old.
Yeah, it was, I was in the, I was thinking the 2000 aughts. I thought somewhere between that area and maybe as late as 2008, but in any case, you know,
Early
certainly
2000s.
early 2000s.
Okay.
I would certainly go with the administrator's number than my own, but it has been a very long time. When this subject came up before, it was several years ago, it was pointed out that this was a pretty stale study, and things have changed dramatically.
So what did it cost us back then? Or did we pay? Did somebody else pay?
I do not know. Certainly prices, you know, when you think about what inflation has done between 2000, well, in the last 22 years, but no, I do not know what it was that we paid for that.
So after we did this study, nothing happened?
Unfortunately, I don't know that nothing happened because I was not on the commission at the time. There may have been some action that was taken. But, you know, again, when we're talking about roadways, 22 years is kind of a long time, so.
Well, yeah, I understand.
But I would have to go back and ask the people who were on the commission at the time.
I'd like to know if it was done, what happened with that, and what did it cost? Because you're saying that we may be able to get money from Mark, and you mentioned several other organizations that could possibly have some skin in the game, and then then we'd use some of our money. But I think that would be the last thing, if we can. I'd like to know what they're willing to put in, you know, as far as some of these others. And plus, when that study's done, you know, we do these studies, study for this, study for that, but I guess I'd like to say we did the study and then we went out and this is what we did. And we saw something good from all of that money and all of that studying that was done. So, you know, if we're looking at $500K, holy moly, and if we can get some from the state, get some from other places, I think we do that first. And then we come back and, you know, they're probably going to say, what can you contribute? Okay, that's fine. What are you going to give us?
We could do it that way. The thing is, by earmarking it that way, we have it. We can, you know, it gives us the ability to go to, say, to Jefferson City and say, we are putting this much in, and matching funds is not an unusual setup.
Absolutely.
As far as do we do something about it, I'll tell you the truth, it's on us then. The monkey is on our backs, because if we spend, and say that we're in for just the $70,000, say that's the amount that county money is going for that. So for $70,000, we're getting $500,000 worth of benefit. It's monkeys on our back to do something about it. If it doesn't go anywhere, I think we got a lot of splaining to do.
Well, we don't have the manpower to go out and do it, number one. But number two, it ain't our baby. That's the state's highway. So if we're going out there and we're doing a $500,000 study, and we're investing, whether it's $70,000 or $100,000 in it, I want to know, and I think all of us should want to know, what the hell is the state going to do about it once that we give them a valid study and say, here's what we're saying, we know this is, you know, where all the areas that are dangerous, and 92 is loaded with them. But once that we get that, how are we going to know that after wasting the money, nothing gets done because it's a state highway?
You know? The answer is kind of easy, but it's from the other direction, and that is, how much money will we get if we do not have a study? Easy answer, zero.
Well, I know that, but I can see the money coming to us from the state. I'm just saying, what's the commitment from the state to do something once the study am I out of line here?
No.
Somebody
No.
want to tell me I'm out of line for doing it? But, you know,
I'm just saying, you know, if you're talking about baseball, because that's the subject that's come up recently. If you're talking about baseball, if you don't get up to bat and you don't swing at the ball, you're never going to hit it. And that's really what this is. And if if that's where we want to go. But I think that there's nothing that gets done without a study. That is the first question they're going to ask us. And, this is something that our citizens really demand. And like I say, it's not unusual to have a matching funds kind of a thing.
And that's great.
And I have already, I've talked to some of the folks in Jefferson City, and I'll be going down again to make sure, but I think again, last year I thought we were in the budget too. Last year things broke down. This year, I'm not overly optimistic about how Jefferson City will function, but I don't know. Things could but like I say, I do know we have to try.
And I'm all for that. I drive 92 all the time, and it's sheer hell. You get behind a slow truck or something, you can't pass.
Mm-hmm.
If you try to, you can endanger somebody else's life. There's a lot of little, bits and parts of that thing that are just plain dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just saying, before I commit our money to doing that, and just being so willing to say, hey, we got 70,000, we'll throw in the pot. They haven't even committed, they're coming close. I'd want them to commit first. And secondly, I'd want them to say, you get the study done, we're willing to commit to do something once the study is done. Maybe that isn't the way it's done in the government. I know that the government's here to help us, but I'd just like to know what kind of responsibility they have after we get all this money that we could use for our own roads, that now here's 92, and we're going to throw away a bunch of money on 92 and then nothing happens. Nothing could not happen. You can't guarantee me that they'll do it.
There are no guarantees in life. We've been around long enough to understand that concept.
Yeah,
but I guess what I'm saying is you've already you're jumping to the assumption that it will be money down a rat hole. And if
I'm not.
Because you say, well, if we're going to throw this money away, or we will invest this money and we will see some improvements.
We may see some improvement.
We may, yes. We may not.
we
Once
may
again,
not.
there's only one guarantee in life, and that is if you don't try, you're probably not going to succeed.
Well,
that's about the only thing I can think
I
of.
agree with you 100%. I just think we've got our own roads that are in deplorable condition, and we don't have the funds to do everything our highway department would love to see us do. And yes, I'm all for a study and all for getting 92 fixed, but we, in a way, we don't have a dog in that fight because it's a state highway. That's all I'm saying. That's the only.
No, I've been
we
doing.
don't have the control.
I've been doing this for some time,
I
and
know.
to go to a citizen and say it ain't our road is really not does not satisfy their concerns.
Yeah, I understand.
But when
But it's
but we
not.
have the opportunity
Yeah.
to do something. And to tell you the truth, like I say, we're the percentage we're pulling down would be pretty reasonable, but clearly this is something that we're not going to decide tonight. But what I want to do is to get it keyed up and get folks thinking about it and say, okay, so should we or should we not? I would not expect, and I don't think it would be wise for us to make a decision tonight. Say yes, by God. I guess what I might ask is going to be is that we at some point in the near future consider obligating that money through a resolution.
And you're going to go down to the state and talk to your friends down
Yep.
there?
I've already been told that it's being put in the budget, so I need to, once again, I love my friends down there. I would like to see it. They're wonderful people, but I would like to verify that, yes, that ball is rolling before I come and ask this group. Say, no, I've seen it. It is at least proposed.
Yeah.
So that's something that I would like to be able to do. But if I say, okay, it's proposed, and yeah, we're going forward, and they say, how much you putting in? It's like, nothing.
No, I just say, what are you putting into it? I'm going to go back and see what the commission will release. But at least let them tell us what they can do. If they say, this year's a bad year, we can't give you a dime. Okay, then why our little bit of money isn't going to do any good? But if they're willing to do that, if we put something in, then it's a whole different kettle of fish.
Well, I've been talking with some of the folks down at Mark, and we are working on getting, hopefully, money out of Mark. So what I want to do is to get money from several different sources, if possible. in the great scheme of things, this is a lot of money to us. To these guys, it's a different perspective.
Sure.
I'm not saying that they don't care about it and they wouldn't necessarily do their due diligence, because they will and they should. I guess what I'm saying is I would like to be able to go down and make the case that this should be done.
Yep.
Okay. Commissioner Withington.
Do you have a copy of the 2002 study that you could send to all of us?
I do. I have a paper copy of it. We can try and scan it and send it to everybody.
Okay. So you had said that Joanne had indicated that this would be throwing money down a rat hole. I'll say it. I think this is throwing money down a rat hole. I've said this several times. Roads do not create economic development. I've talked to both mayors in Kearney and Smithville, and they have even said that 92 Highway doesn't warrant being expanded to 4 lanes. I don't want to solve a problem or spend money on a study that's probably going to sit on a shelf and never get used. The last one it's been 22 years since the last study and it didn't get used. We have a problem that we should be trying to fix today on 291. The fact that 291 is not 4 lanes and it actually warrants expanding to 4 lanes is crazy that we're talking about trying to expand another road. I hate roads to nowhere. I hate expanding roads.
But before, I'm sorry, can I correct you? Because I'm not talking about a 4-lane road. I'm not talking about that kind of an advancement on 92.
Okay. So you said you don't want 92 to be 4 lanes?
Oh, do I absolutely do? Do I think it's practical in the short term? Probably not. No, what we're talking about...
By the time we get to being 4 lanes, you know what they're going to want? They're going to want another study.
What I'm talking about is doing things like finding where we have existing problems.
So 291 has existing problems, and it's causing commercial development to not be built because MoDOT, before they do any commercial development on some of those corners, MoDOT is wanting traffic lights, or stoplights, they're wanting turn lanes. We should be spending money on 291, not 92 Highway.
Well, I also had a discussion with the mayor of Kearney, mayor of Smithville, and he is helping on this. He is helping me.
When I talked to him today, I'm not saying he's not going to help with the study, but he's saying that 92 Highway should not be turned to four lanes. So
it's not practical. It's not a practical option for us.
So I'm just saying that. So we also have a potential 10,000 person development coming in close to 291. I think we should be focusing more on 291 than 92 Highway. I think we're going to spend money, $70,000, and whatever else the state and whoever else kicks in. I think it's going to be a waste because by the time we get to do anything with that study, they're going to want a new study. I just think it's a waste of money. I'm not going to support putting any county money when our roads are crap in our county that we manage, and that money could be better spent there or for other projects in the Western District. But I just think that we should be prioritizing 291 over 92 Highway. Look at 435. 435 was built in the 70s. Twin Creeks didn't come online until sewers. You're not going to get economic development along 92 Highway until there's sewers, regardless of if the road's 4 lanes. You're just going to have 4 lanes going through cow pastures.
It's not going to be 4-lane. The thing is, though, what I'm proposing...
You just said that eventually 92 Highway would be 4 lanes. You would like to see it?
I would like it to be, yes.
Yeah, so
there's
that's
a lot
what
of things
saying.
I would like.
Yeah, so and I'm telling you, regardless, it's not going to happen unless there's sewers. Twin Creeks didn't come online until there was sewers. So I think this commission would be better off prioritizing 291 over 92 Highway.
But I'm acting on the explicit instructions of the commission because this is one of the priorities that was put in our legislative agenda.
291 was also one of the priorities. So So if you're going to act on the will of the commission, why aren't you acting on 291?
Because I can only do so many. Because I can only do so many. I can't do everything.
The EDC's pushing the 92 Highway. There's some people that want legacy projects, whatever. But I'm responding saying
legacy.
I'm responding just saying my personal opinion is 291 should be prioritized over 92.
And what I'm saying is, this was a priority voted on by the commission.
So it was
I acted on the,
291.
I acted on the, I'm acting on the specific.
That's fine, Jerry. That's
in-
fine. I can have an opinion too.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm just simply saying 291 should be prioritized over.
Mm-hmm.
I voted for the priorities too. I'm going to be a no on 92 Highway because I think it's going to be a waste of money. And I think 291 should be prioritized over 92.
And by the way, just to clarify one more time, because I don't want it to get on the wrong end of the stick, the prospect of us getting 4 lanes on 92 anywhere in the foreseeable future, unfortunately, is not in the cards.
No,
What
I
we're
know
talking about is turning lanes, so when farmers are going from one field to the next, we're talking about whatever other kind of improvements, shoulders on the road, that kind of thing. So we're talking about those kind of improvements that would specifically enhance safety and the ability to move traffic.
We know MoDOT has funding problems, so we have no guarantee that spending this on that study is going to get us those improvements. So I would rather prioritize today's problems on 291 versus 92 because we know, again, we're going to spend $500,000, and I bet you in 22 years, the commission will still be sitting here asking for a third study on 92 Highway.
For better or worse, I will not be here at that point.
We'll all be termed out by then.
No doubt.
So that's just where I'm at. I think 291 should be priority over 92.
Certainly.
And I'm not going to support.
And by the way, this is the whole point of the discussion,
Yeah.
is to hear differing views. And I certainly welcome your differing
I wasn't trying to
view.
argue with you or anything. You know, I was just stating my opinion that I
Yes.
think 291 should be a higher priority than 92.
Yeah, and I'm acknowledging that this is an entirely legitimate discussion that we're having right
Yeah.
now. With that, Commissioner Wagner.
Thank you. So I'm going to come at this a little bit differently. I'm going to tell you that $70,000 alone will get you nothing on 92 or 291, because I've been through this rodeo more times than I care to count. And what I will tell you is that it's all about setting a priority and showing with your dollars where your priority is. And in this case, whether you want it to be 92 or 291 or anything else you want it to be, no one will pay attention to it unless it is clear that there is jurisdictions that want it. And 70,000 is not enough to show it. But what I will say is if you get 70,000 from the county, you get X amount of dollars, let's use 92, and then I'll go over to 291. If on 92, Smithville says, that's a priority, we're going to put in money. Kearney says, that's a priority, we're going to put in money because we're on the bookends and we want a better corridor here. You don't have to come up with $500,000, but you do have to come up with enough to say you're serious. If on the other hand, it is 291, then we throw in our $70,000, it's not enough. Kansas City will have to throw in money. You'll probably have to ask the Shoal Creek TIF to throw in money to get you at least in arm's length so that you can say to MoDOT when they do their 5-year STIP that this is a priority of the jurisdictions of within Clay County and of Clay County itself. That gets their attention. Then they know, oh, there is money coming in to do this project to at least get to this stage, which I would guess you're going to get some early engineering. Maybe you get to NEPA. So maybe, right? So, but if you can get that far, you talk about we don't want this sitting on the shelf. Absolutely agree. But when it shows that this is the priority of the jurisdictions of the area, it makes it a much easier conversation to then go to the Mid-America Regional Council, whether it is for their STP or TTPC funds, to be able to say, because this is a priority, now the federal funds that are coming through that are being operated on, you know, here's the problem that we have in Clay County, and I apologize if I'm a broken record and if I've said this before. The traffic counts that we have in Clay County are nothing compared to who we compete against. Therefore, to pop up on that list, you have to be able to say, money is coming in from these jurisdictions to match up. And if you say that Clay County And whatever route you choose, if those jurisdictions that are on those routes throw in, then that begins to go up the pecking order. They see that this is wanted by Clay County, and if it's not developed over time, then they know that they've got a problem. Because we'll go run to the state, we'll go run to our Congress people, and we're going to say, look, you're sending money here, and we're obviously involved in this. And I won't go through the various projects that I've worked through, but except for one, I will just use, because we've talked about it before, and it's in the news, and it's about done, the Buck O'Neill Bridge project. I think we've talked about it on other occasions, but MoDOT wanted a certain way of doing that, which was basically give you the same bridge, just replace the rivets. So it was essentially the idea. Kansas City said, no, we want something better, and the Northland said, we want something better. But no one paid attention until, and this was when I was still serving, when we said, you know what, we're going to put on our next 1% for infrastructure, we will say $100 million of local money will go into this. And then when we went to Mark, a number of organizations, a number of cities in the Northland said, you know, we're going to forego our asks for federal dollars so that we will put $40 million of federal funds coming through Mark on this project. It's the old adage of money talks, and you know the rest of the sentence, so we won't do that. We got kids watching probably. But I just say all that to say that there is a pathway, but it is a pathway that must have a coalition of jurisdictions involved, a coalition of the willing that is willing to say, I can't pay for all of this, but I'm willing to put a little bit into this. And I guess I'll just leave my comments with, I'm a bit agnostic to the earlier comments. Is it 291? Is it 92? I know in either case, you got to have partners. And if we're the only ones interested in either project, the project's just not going to go. So I tend to think, to taking both conversations, I'd just like to know who's willing to do what. And if there is some appetite from somebody to do something, and we have 70,000 that we can apply, then maybe it's just, hey, we're willing to put $70,000 into a project, who's with us? And then see where that lies. And if it's on a certain corridor, cool. If it's nothing, well, then we know. I guess we'll be waiting for a while. But I will at least say that you can't rely on the 2002. It's dated, it's old. No project will go based on that. We're kind of back to that square one. So let's see who wants to be engaged, and if it's somebody, cool. If it's nobody, well, then we know.
And that's an awfully good point, because that's kind of what I'm trying to do, is get a conversation starter. Otherwise, we just sit on our hands, shake our heads, and go, man, doesn't it stink out there? And that's not the kind of option I want to go for. Commissioner Carpenter, I believe, I'm sorry, were you?
I'm finished.
Okay. Commissioner Carpenter?
Thank you. No, I largely agree with what Commissioner Wagner said. And it certainly makes sense as a first step to check with the communities that would be most affected. Seems like there's maybe, we're not exactly sure what the respective leadership of those cities, what role they want to play, if any, in this. And so it seems very clear to me that given that they would be highly impacted, that having them fully on board would be a necessary thing to us deciding to put money in, for sure. My question is just, I haven't talked with like our local MoDOT engineer, but they have folks right around here to help answer these questions, and maybe y'all have, but do they give any sense of what their plans are in the immediate future for 92 or 291 for that matter, in terms of improvements?
No, I've not really gotten their feel for that yet. And what you were saying about having the buy-in is an important part of it. One of the things reasons I wanted to have this discussion was, if I'm going to go talk to the mayor of one of the municipalities or somebody else, quite honestly, I feel like I need to have had a discussion with the commission so that I can go to them and say, the commission has, this is not just me saying, hey, wouldn't this be cool? But that is the point of coming to the commission, and that's the point of having this discussion, because it's not, this can't be my priority. I mean, this is not a legacy project. I mean, if we have a turn lane over by Double D Highway, I'm not sure I quite feel that's a legacy that doesn't quite fall a little short of legacy. What I see is a situation where there are some dangerous places and that we can maybe do some projects, some individual projects with that help. That's why I'm saying we're not going to do a 4-lane thoroughfare. As great as that might or might not be, it ain't going to happen. I wish it would, but it's not. But what we can do is make it safer. Is it worthwhile to pursue this? I mean, there have been a number of accidents. There have been a number of fatalities on that road. Is it worth pursuing and having a conversation over? Yeah. Should we consider this proposal? Yeah, we should consider a lot of proposals. But the thing is, I think we need to be when we're talking about putting money into projects, I think we also need to be thinking about what is impactful for safety and for traffic. I mean, we put money into bike lanes that doesn't necessarily enhance that. Walking trails, they're great. We should be getting involved in it, but that doesn't enhance safety as much as, say, putting in a turning lane or something like that. So, yeah, in my estimation, and this is at least a way for us to start thinking about it, start raising the issues, and if nothing else, we become aware, and then we can say, look, this particular intersection is highly dangerous. We really need to have an improvement there. And this allows us to advocate for our citizens.
Yeah, no, gotcha. And I appreciate all that. One thing I would want to know as a next step is just what plans, if any, MoDOT has for, some of the local highways here in the county, whether that's 291 or 92, just to get some sense of, what they're looking at doing, if anything, in the, years to come. The other reason to do that, I think, would be, at the end of the day, they have a little more expertise in terms of assessing, those types of what are the highest need priorities, things like safety, they track those numbers and do this every day. And so while I think us discussing the subject is an important thing for sure, I would like to get their expertise in terms of where they think the highest priority is. For example, if there's a debate that we have between 92 and 291, I would want their opinion in terms of which is a more immediate need.
And that's why I wanted to have this discussion. I did not want to get in a position to where it was felt that I was not consulting the commission. I did not want to have that kind of an issue raised because that distracts from the discussion of whether or not, how it is we allocate transportation money. If we can get away from the personalities and look at what is actually needed, I think that's probably a positive thing. So, like I say, that's why, and lively discussion is great, and it's much better for us to have this discussion now than if I had, say, already had extensive talks with MoDOT and all those folks. I mean, I've reached out to them, but I felt that I needed to have a sense of the commission before I could really carry it any further than we have.
Understood. Yeah, no, that makes sense. So to me, the next two steps are to consult with MoDOT, see what they have to say, what their opinion is and what their plans, if any, are, and then also talk, to Commissioner Wagner's point, with Kearney, Smithville, Kansas City in the case of 291, and see, what their level of interest and buy-in would be, and that would help inform my thoughts on this.
And I think we would have a more successful negotiation with Kearney or Smithville or Excelsior Springs. Kansas City's a bit of a harder nut to crack, negotiating wise. Commissioner Lawson.
Yeah, they've just spent months, maybe almost a year, doing projects on 92. I don't know what the hell they did. I mean, if you drive from Kearney to Smithville, there's a couple of areas where the sides of the road look really nice, but I don't see that all of that time that was spent, what exactly it was they did. But I do agree with Commissioner Carpenter. I think the most important thing we can do is say to MoDOT, what are your plans for the next 3 years in our area surrounding Clay County? The other thing, to your point, sorry, that won't go off. To your point, what about the partners that we have along the way? Kearney has been more than vocal about saying not no, but hell no. We don't want 92 widened, we got other priorities, and that is a non-issue. Smithville, I've not heard them as much, but I understand that they've had, their feelings are the same, aren't they? Pretty much on Smithville? Yeah, that they weren't really interested either. So that kills two of our key people that would really be able to kind of give us a little push.
But once again, we're not talking about widening them, we're talking about safety improvements.
I know, but
we keep going
they
back to
don't care
widening,
about-
and it's kind of a red
They don't care
herring.
about 92, it's obvious, that's not a priority. And again, I'm going to say this, our focus, our main focus, ought to be trying to figure out how we can get money to do more for the roads within this county. We've got horrible roads. That's not anybody's fault, except that we don't have the money to do everything we'd like to do. So if we're going to go after money and we want improvements in Clay County, it ought to be our Clay County roads that we've got control over. But most of all, I think we're spinning our wheels if we don't go to MoDOT first and find out what their plans are.
Once again, and I do need, and I've talked to MoDOT a little bit, but not extensively, because once again, I don't want to be in a position to where they're saying, well, that Commissioner Nolte guy, he's just out there cutting all these deals without talking to us first. That's what this is about, is to avoid that kind of a situation.
We're asking you to do it. If you're out there looking at getting money and all of this other, then go to MoDOT or have Diana go to MoDOT, and somebody goes and finds out exactly what their big plan is for the next 4 years or whatever. And then if 92 is included, then that's another, opens a discussion a different way. But if they're saying, we've done all we're going to do on 92 till, 10 years down the road, then why spin our wheels and why go begging for money when they're not going to do anything after the study's done and we get money? If they're not willing to do something, then...
So if the money's in the state budget, you would still not care to go forward, even if it was totally paid for by the state?
They're gonna, it could be in the state budget, but is the state going to do something on 92? Is that a plan? If it's not, then hell, go after the money for our own little county here and try to get some of that money for our road improvements.
Once again, I am acting on pretty much the explicit legislative priorities. Can I do all the legislative priorities? No, I cannot.
Well,
I cannot do all of them, so
but if you're gonna
I try to choose the ones that I think that I can get the most traction on. Any commissioner on this panel is perfectly free to pursue the priorities of this county, either with our legislative delegation or whoever. I'm not, Commissioner Wagner and I have been down to Jeff City talking about this kind of a thing, but apart from that, I don't know. The thing is, we do have to at least have the discussion.
Oh, absolutely.
And I feel a little bit like it's, there's some criticism for pursuing.
No, I'm not saying that, Jerry. I'm just saying nothing. I think anything any of us do is worthwhile. When we bring it back to the commission and we have these discussions, just like you said, he may disagree with what you said,
Sure.
but we talk about it and then we come to an agreement that everybody can live with. I think that's great. And when we walk away from here, we can go have a beer and it's no big deal. Nobody's angry about it. So I think discussion is phenomenal. All I'm saying is, if you're going to put your efforts in down there at Jeff City, and I'm all for you doing, you got great contacts down there. If you go down there and you want to visit with people about money that can be used, whether it's 92 as a study, whatever it may be, then before you waste your time is valuable. Before you waste your time on that, find out if they're even looking at 92, if they're even asking a study to be done. And if we did a study, what would happen afterwards? That's the only thing I'm saying. Let's get some groundwork from the guys down there and from MoDOT. then bring that back. We've got all of our facts and figures, and we can hash it out then. Right now, we're shooting blind.
Well,
you know?
thing is, for me to pursue the priorities of this commission, whether I succeed or not, I do not consider a waste of time, of my time. This is my job. If it works out, great. If it doesn't work
Great.
out, okay, I'll
Absolutely.
figure out something else. But, you know, I see a need, I see a concern, and I'm, you know, acting on it in conjunction with what the commission has expressed. Now, if someone wants to pursue one of the other priorities, by all means. It would probably be a good idea if two commissioners were pursuing the same priority,
exactly.
that we
Exactly.
coordinate. But like I say, apart from Commissioner Wagner, I haven't seen too much that I can coordinate with, but I am absolutely ready to sit down and talk or sit down and work with any commissioner or anyone else. What I'm trying to do is I don't want to go down there and talk a big story up with these folks and then get slammed here. Makes no sense. Now, that would be a kind of waste of time. That's what I'm trying to do right now. So, I mean, if we've got 2 no votes from the get-go, I'm not sure what that tells me.
Well, I'm not saying that, Jerry. Go with God and do the things you want to do. But what I'm saying is, before you waste your valuable time going down there and starting to find out how much money we can get for this or that, find out what the heck MoDOT's going to do. At least know that. If they have plans for 92, if they're not going to do anything on 92 for the next 5 years, why waste your efforts and our money to do that? That's all I'm saying. You know, do what you'll do, but I'm just saying for myself, until I have all those facts laid out in front of me that says, hey, we want to redo 92. And then we talk to people like Kearney and Smithville. We need to bring them into the conversation as well.
But once again, for me to do that, we need to have this conversation. One of the drawbacks some years ago was it was impossible for me to have these because I knew that the commission was going to oppose me pretty much. And we're talking about the bad old days now.
Yeah.
I had no ability to solicit things. Right now, I'm trying to build that consensus and say, okay, what is the consensus? What are we trying to do?
Yeah.
Because, you know, I don't, you know, it is not my ambition to put something forward and then get the legs cut out from under me here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I don't want you wasting your time. I mean, I'm just saying, let's find out what MoDOT's plan is, if they even have a plan. Who knows?
Well, that's the thing is,
You
if they
know?
have a plan and we don't care for it, again, there's no point. So,
That's
like I said,
exactly right.
I'm essentially, here's what I'm trying to do, and that is come to the level of government that is closest that we need to confront, or to chat with, and that is this body. This body is, I have a responsibility to this commission. I don't necessarily have a responsibility in the same sense to other entities. So that's why I'm coming here and saying, folks, here's what I see. I need some guidance. Support would be great too. But just tell me, let's have this conversation. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be rambling on so much. I'll try to be more brief. I don't want to keep us here all night. Commissioner Wagner.
Thank you. I'm going to make a suggestion or two. Hopefully this will get to your question, actually. So I'm helpful. I would assume that Terry or Carl can access what the 5-year STIP currently is for MoDOT, because I believe there is one. And the reason I bring up the 5-year STIP is because that is what MoDOT says in this district. This is what we believe we are going to invest in. It exists, they make it, they update it. I think to get to your question of what are they doing or what do they think they're going to do, if it is possible to have that sent our way, which is probably nothing more than a link on MoDOT's site for the district, that should get to one of the questions that you've asked. And if that can be sent, I think that would be helpful to the discussion. I'm going to suspect that there is probably not on that 5-year surface transportation investment plan anything to do with 92. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that is probably going to be the case. But if there is a pathway, and again, I will say whether it's 92, whether it's 291, I believe that in order to give assurance that these things are things that don't sit on a shelf and gather dust and so on, somehow, some way, one or both of those projects must appear on that 5-year STIP in order for it to be shown to be a priority for MoDOT. Having said that, I will also, again, using the previous example I said I used with the Buck O'Neill Bridge, initially the Buck O'Neill Bridge and the rivet replacement plan of $50 million appeared on the 5-year STIP. That's what got everybody fired up in Clay County and Jackson County and Kansas City to say, no, that is unacceptable. We want to do something different. So I mention all that to just simply say, whether it's 92, whether it's 291, our objective should be to be on that 5-year STIP. I believe to get there, there has to be that conversation with our jurisdictions to say, we're ready to throw in some money to get there. Are you ready to throw some money to get there? And then you take that to MoDOT to say, we want to see something, this needs to go on your 5-year plan. And if you can get it to that far, you're part of the way there. The other part is just simply to put the pressure on to make it more and more of a priority. So I just throw that out there to say, I believe there's a pathway, but there's a pathway that MoDOT uses. We just need to get on it. And if we have, again, some coalition of the willing, whether it's for 92 or 291 or any priority for that matter, that becomes important to get on that 5-year plan. That has been my experience. Others may disagree with that. There is certainly, and I think this is where our presiding commissioner is correct, sometimes you can just go to, if the legislature wants it bad enough, sometimes it will appear on a 5-year STIP
Magically.
as a result of that. But again, I think that's where you have to show that it is a mutual priority, not just of Clay County, but others. And to the degree that you can show that, that may be a pathway to get there. To me, the path always ends up leading, at least in my experience, someplace. And that is on MoDOT's list. And if you can get that for the district, then you're now on a pathway. But again, I don't know what's on that STIP currently. I'm guessing that of what is not on it, and I think I know there's a couple of things related to I-35 and 29 that are, because we've discussed it as part of the whole split. So I think I know those two are on it, but I couldn't tell you what else is on it. So if we can maybe start there, that's at least, I think, a good bit of education that at least starts getting us down a pathway. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Commissioner Withington.
I just wanted to say before, and Scott took what I was going to say, 291 is on the STIP, or there is a project for 291, 92 is not on the STIP. How much did you ask the state for?
$500,000.
500,000? So if they
Well, let me correct that. I'm sorry. $500,000 is the ask. I wanted to confirm numbers, so I would be confirming that because I wanted to get an idea. I wanted an updated version of what this study might potentially cost.
Yeah, so if the state wants to fund $500,000, that's their business, but I still think that throwing county money towards it is not a good investment. But if the state wants to 100% fund it, that's their project, that's their road. I just don't think that. I hate you know because you and I talk.
Don't bring me into this.
I hate studies because they're such a waste of time and money. You put all this time, and then when you get ready to implement it, they come back and they say, you got to update the study, or you got to do a new study, or you got to update the master plan, and you just kick off the cycle. I just think studies are a waste of time. But one last thing, and then it was said earlier that we spend money on bike lanes and we spend money on trails, and those don't really provide safety. So I don't ride a bike, so I could care less about bike lanes. I know they help you get federal funding because the way that everything's set up. But I do take obsession to the thing about trails. The Western District is probably one of the least walkable portions of Kansas City, Missouri. I mean, we've talked about it, kids can't get to school safely, right? Trails have opened up connectivity to places in the Western District that are unsafe for walking. So to say that trails don't provide safety, that's a completely inaccurate statement. People aren't gonna come out and retrofit neighborhoods with sidewalks, but they will put a trail through Greenway that open up connectivity to neighborhoods. A great example of how a trail can create connectivity is in Platte County. The Line Creek Trail goes all the way up to Bizona. Before there was nothing there, you know, and Waukomis is a very dangerous road, future Line Creek Parkway, but I always call it the Westminder Parkway. But Wes worked really hard to get that Line Creek Trail, and now it connects Riverside. It connects over by Briarcliff, and there's a study now for the River North Trail that will connect all the way to North Kansas City. So trails, some may think that they're not safe, but trails do provide a lot of connectivity and a lot of safety for pedestrians. So I just wanted to make sure that was said.
Any further discussion? We are starting to get kind of late, and I apologize for myself being long-winded in some of these discussions. So is there anyone else who would like to make any comments before we close the discussion? Very well. So we will go ahead and consider this discussion closed. And let me get back on my agenda page. That brings us to number 10, which is reports, and I believe we have one report, Administrator?
That's correct. There is one report in the Commission's packet, and that is the 7th Judicial Circuit Court summary of cases filed in 2023 that was provided by the prosecutor pursuant to state statute.
Yes, Commissioner Johnson, thank you.
Thank you, sir. I have a comment on that report. So I understand that the state law requires the county prosecutor to submit a report to the commission every year with a number of filings broken down by felony and misdemeanor, and he certainly did that. And it shows that there were 5,145 filings last year, 2023, which doesn't really mean a whole lot. Most people don't know what that is. That good? Is 5145? Is that a good number? Is that a bad number? What does that mean? I happened to look up Jackson County, and their prosecutor actually has a dashboard that has all this information. They filed half the amount of criminal cases last year than we did in Clay County. Jackson County's 3 times our size, I think. They filed half the amount. What was interesting, and I don't know if we're comparing apples to apples because they dispoed out another 3,100, but they claim they only received 4,426 cases to be filed, which just does not make sense to me. We filed more than they even received, which is strange. But it brings me to my question, and I know we can't give direction to either the prosecutor's office or the sheriff's department, but I'm interested in on their website, on the Jackson County Prosecutor's website, it gives cases received by each department, breaks down by each department, how many cases are received, how many are filed, how many are not filed, how many are disposed out, a lot of information. I would kind of like to see if the prosecutor or working with the sheriff's department, something that could tell us a little bit more about how many arrests are we making at the sheriff's department, and how many of those arrests, not just the sheriff's department, but county-wide law enforcement, how many of those arrests are actually getting filed, and if they're not, why not, kind of what our ratio is, kind of what the clearance rate is for the sheriff's department, and also what the numbers look like broken down by the FBI statistics. And FBI does it by violent crime, part 1 crime, and part 2 crime. Those would be very interesting numbers to see, and would help me when it comes to funding. And what resources they need at the sheriff's department and the prosecutor's office to make sure those numbers are the numbers that we want to see. If Jackson County's numbers are correct, and I saw those here in Clay County, I'd be mortified. It just does not make sense. And I think I've said a million times, I don't want to be like them. And I think I said it many times, I want to have that reputation that, hey, we are tough on crime. And if these numbers are apples to apples here with Jackson County, then kudos to the prosecutor's office for filing more than double the amount of criminal cases in Jackson County for a county that's a third of the size. But nonetheless, more information, I think, would be helpful, because these mean nothing. Probably, I doubt anybody here knows what 5,145 filings means. Is that good? Is that bad? And really, it's relative to, well, what kind of crime rate do we have? How many arrests are we making, and how many arrests are not getting filed, and why aren't they getting filed? Is there an issue with some of our law enforcement officers that they're just not presenting good reports to our prosecutor's office that they can't file on, because you got to give them a good report for them to file on? Or is our prosecutor just plain not filing on cases? I don't think that's the case in our county. But this will give us proof to show, hey, we're tough on crime here. So I guess what I'm saying is I would like to see the county prosecutor and the sheriff's office working together to give us a little bit more information. Again, I know we can't direct them to do that, but I guess I can just request and say pretty please, because it would be their advantage, because we do hold the purse strings, and this would be able to give them some more money, I think, if we could show through the numbers what that is. But just a comment.
And I would also share, I know the sheriff's office last year did an annual report that had a lot more data into their annual report, and my guess is they're working on another annual report for 2023, and certainly when that's done, we will share that with the commission. We'll certainly have a conversation with the prosecutor's office to see, what additional information could also be provided with regard to the backup of what's presented this evening.
Perfect, thanks. And by the looks of this, just on the surface, looks like our prosecutor, relative to other counties, is doing a great job. So I appreciate what he's doing.
Anyone else care to comment on the report? Okay, seeing none. Thank you for submitting that report to us. That brings us to county administrator comments. Administrator?
Just to announce that the commission's next regular meeting is next Thursday, February 8th at 6 o'clock here in the chambers.
Very good. That brings us to commissioner comments, and we will start with Commissioner Wagner. No comment. Commissioner Lawson.
I've said enough.
Commissioner Withington. Commissioner Carpenter. Commissioner Thompson. Commissioner Johnson. All right, well, I'll be the odd man out. My comment relates to something I saw. It was in the national news, but I think it's something that affects us here, and that is a lot of us probably saw the footage of 2 police officers in Times Square being basically assaulted by a group of what are referred to as migrants. I have other words, but we do have rules of etiquette here at the commission. The reason I bring that up is this. Things that happen in the East and West Coast, unfortunately, as often as not, make their way here. What we saw was basically people acting like a pack of dogs going after these police officers. The individuals who were taken into custody were out on the streets before the police officers who were hospitalized were out on the street. That is hard to even comprehend. The reason that I bring that up is this. We need to redouble our efforts to support our law enforcement officers locally, particularly our sheriff and his deputies, because that is who we are directly responsible for. Those are the people that we are the closest to. I think we have to make every effort to make sure that this kind of behavior is not visited on our sheriff's deputies. And I think if it is, we need to make sure that we are making every effort to push back on that. This is unacceptable. We have men and women out there with badges, and I am happy that we here at the county are treating our deputies and law enforcement better than we had some years ago. I think we've turned a corner, and I want to keep that corner turned. But I think we need to be vigilant that there are individuals of the ilk of these people. And we need to make sure that our law enforcement, once again, specifically our sheriff's deputies, understand that we have their back to the degree we possibly can. And anytime something like this happens, it is incumbent on us to speak out and support our law enforcement professionals who we owe so much to. It is a debt that doesn't get repaid. So with that, if there's nothing else, we are adjourned. Thank you. Did you see that, Jay?